After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, into the land that I am giving to them, to the people of Israel. Number one, mindset point number one, Moses is dead, arise. Moses is dead, arise. This is a mindset change that Joshua and the people of Israel desperately needed as they prepared to go to the promised land and fight waves and waves of Hittites and Jebusites and Ammonites. So if you look at verse 1, you'll see the time marker after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord. You can read that story of Moses' death in Deuteronomy 34. It's really, if you're in a paper Bible, it's like one page turn away. So it's right there. God showed Moses the land at a distance, and then we are told God buried him. Really interesting story, and it gets even weirder if you read Jude later on that. Moses was 120 years old, and the people wept for 30 days, we're told. So they had a significant time of mourning for Moses. The book of Deuteronomy ends singing the praises of Moses. It says, not another prophet like him who saw God face to face, not another who did signs and wonders like him. No one whom God used for great power and deeds was like him in all of Israel. So it ends Deuteronomy, the first 5 books of the law, which we believe Moses penned 99% of. It ends singing the praises of Moses. He was a great man, awesome guy. Now, Joshua was a great man too. He and Caleb, like we said, alone were allowed to see the promised land because of their faith 40 years ago. He was a military general of Moses. Moses laid hands on him and commissioned him. He trusted him. Joshua was no slouch, okay? In fact, verse 1 says Joshua was the assistant or the aide, the right-hand man. So if there was a natural successor, it would have been Joshua. However, you can imagine having to follow a man in leadership like Moses. That's enough to give any man trepidation. And yet Moses' death was right at the moment when Israel needed a new leader. Moses had taken them triumphantly out of Egypt. He took them through the difficult wilderness years. So usually as a leader, you don't get to be the triumph guy and the through hard times guy, but Moses was both. He got to see both of those times. But there was a new season upon them, and they had to move forward. I mean, literally, they had to. You can't just hang out at the edge of the Jordan River forever. So I wonder what Joshua was feeling internally as he knew something was coming. Am I worthy? Am I the man for this job? Can I do what Moses did? Half of what Moses did. Will God be with me, or will I be some Bible example forever of what not to do? Was this whole project wrapped up in God and Moses being buddies? But I don't have that. Joshua had to follow a giant. That is never easy to do in any field. But look what God says to Joshua in verse 2. He says, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise, go. This should tell us something about God right here in verse 2. While we should celebrate and honor great people, the mission of God is bigger than any one person. Next man up. It's almost as if God is saying, I used Moses mightily, but this is not about Moses. I made this promise to Abraham 300 years before Moses was born. I love Moses, but the job's not done. Moses is dead. Arise. I see here a principle that goes even beyond the specific nature of Joshua's task. How easy is it in life after a challenge or a trial or a suffering to just shutter things down and wallow in pity and defeat? Very easy, right? How easy is it to live in a perpetual woe is me mentality? Very easy. Israel was between a trial, wilderness at your back, and promised land at your face. They stood between pain and glory, between defeat and victory, between nomadic wandering and becoming a great nation. And the death of Moses was an opportunity either to paralyze, sulk, or go back to Egypt like they asked before, or to finish what God started, embrace the task, and move forward. God says to Joshua and the people of Israel, Moses is dead. Arise. This is a mindset you need for your life. When a trial comes to your life, listen, you are allowed to mourn it. You are allowed to ask what happened. You are allowed to study it. You are allowed to reflect, to cry. Time to heal. That's all good. Israel cried 30 days for Moses and said great things about him, laid it on thick because he deserved it. But there does come a time to get up, to move forward, and to say, what now, Lord? What now, Lord? So if you're still holding on to the death of Moses in your life and refusing to walk forward into the fresh mercies God has for you tomorrow, this may be for you. Moses is dead. Arise and go.